it's Small from Country Credits. I'm here with Heath Warren, an award-winning songwriter with Warner Chappell Music. So, how are you, Heath?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing great. So, I kind of just wanted to jump back before we get into everything that you're most known for, and jump back into your childhood and how you went all the way from Albuquerque, New Mexico to Nashville, Tennessee, because it's completely different worlds. And bring everyone up to speed about that.
Yeah, I grew up in Albuquerque. Was born and raised there. My dad was a head football coach when I was born. He was head football coach at a pretty big high school there.
Oh,
And my mom was a ticket agent, still is ticket agent for American Airlines. She's worked there my entire life. And yeah, when your dad is a coach, you're born with a ball in your hand. So sports was definitely the biggest part of my childhood, I'd say. But musically, I don't know what it was, but probably right around 4 years old, I just was really drawn to music, and more specifically drums. And I really loved drums, and I was interested in it. So I asked for a drum set when I was 5 for Christmas. Got a drum set, so my
you actually
parents were
got one. Nice.
cool enough to do that and patient enough to allow for me to figure that whole thing out. And really just kind of fast forward, music was really the one. I'll call it a hobby during my childhood. It was something that my parents and no one really ever forced on me. It wasn't like lessons 3 days a week and you need to learn these charts and we're also signing up for piano or something else. I never took a lesson in my life in music. So um, I think in a lot of ways it might be the reason why I am still so passionate about it, because it always felt like it came so freely and it wasn't something I had to do.
Yeah, that makes a big
Which
difference.
what's that?
That makes a big difference. I've heard
Yeah,
that
yeah.
time and time.
I I think so. And you know, I that's to no one's fault on how they choose to, push their children or anything. But uh, for me and for my personality, I think it helped that music was something that I got to choose instead of be forced to do. So anyway, stopped playing sports when I was 18, went to college, University of New Mexico in Albuquerque, and it's a great place to go to school. There's about 30,000 students there, and a bunch of my friends that I grew up with, they all just kind of stay local and choose to go to school there. There's a great scholarship program to keep kids in state. So went to school there and studied communications, specifically advertising. And then while I was in school, I was in a band, and that was with some of my best buddies that I grew up with. Our guitarist grew up next door to my parents' house since I was 4 years old, and the lead singer, we grew up playing basketball against each other since we were 10 years old, and it's just like a really tight knit community, and some of my closest friends. So uh, we toured a bunch in college, got a quick education in professional music and what it took to, you know, write songs, record songs, release songs, tour on a record, and open up for bigger acts, what agencies look like, and what a record deal is, and what a band manager
There's
is,
so
and all
much to
those things.
learn.
I sound like what?
No, I said there's so much to learn.
Yeah, there's so many different entities in music, and you really need to understand the importance of all of them to really be able to grow. And I'm thankful for that time in college and the success that that band had in its short life, because it really was the thing that made me passionate about chasing this dream. And when we all finished college, our band just kind of shut it down. Lead singer started a business, guitarist went into real estate, another guy was an engineer. So we all just kind of, professionally moved on, and it was time to grow apart from that. But I wasn't ready to hang it up on the music thing. So I moved to LA
Oh,
with a band that we had toured with, and they were recording with a producer named Warren Hewitt that I was a massive fan of, and really I was just kind of taking a jump and taking a shot at going out there. Not a massive plan other than
hmm.
trying to be a sponge and absorb whatever I could learn and get into whatever rooms were open to me. And I think because I was willing to do that, uh, I learned a lot, and I learned a lot quickly, uh, and probably quicker than most people moving to LA trying to figure out what it takes to break into that scene. And I always just had really good people around me. My parents being number one, a lot of supportive friends, and just some people that opened some doors and let me crash on. I slept on a floor for my first 2 years in LA, so um, that was just the grind and trying to make enough money doing some one-off things here and there to you know afford the rent and
I
have a
did.
little bit of fun in between and write some songs.
Yeah, okay. That was my question. Were you mostly playing or mostly writing? But I guess it was kind of.
Both. Yeah, I think the goal was to go out there and try and get a drum gig and end up on the road and tour and do that whole thing because it's really where my heart was at that time.
Mhm.
But 2 months into living in LA, I got a phone call that the New Mexico tourism department was looking for someone to custom write a song for their next ad campaign, and they wanted it to be written by someone local. So um I mean, I told them that I was in LA, but I was still an Albuquerque native. So I told them I'd take a stab at writing the song. I wrote it in a day, recorded it, turned it in the next day. They were like, "We love this. We're going to use it for this campaign for the next 5 years." So signed a 5 year licensing contract on that song and made more money than I had ever seen at 23. And
Yeah, good
I
song.
was like, damn, songwriting's so easy. I should just do this for a living. And then I didn't make a penny for like the next 5 years writing songs. But that's really what kind of got me hooked was that first initial professional songwriting deal. And then I just really started trying to tap into that world and understand how it worked. And man, what's a writing room? What's the co-writing collaborative experience take? And how do I find out what I'm best at? And how do I contribute and and learn and get lucky a few more times? So that's really what that LA journey was about for me, was just getting an education in it
Okay.
and chasing it kind of blindly. But ultimately what ended up happening were most of the songs that I was writing in LA felt like pop country songs. And the folks on the professional side that I was working with out there, they were like, "Well, have you ever been to Nashville? We think these songs would be great out there. You should definitely look at moving out there and jumping into that scene." So I took a trip to Nashville and fell in love with it, as everyone else does the second they get here. But I really fell in love with like the communal aspect of the songwriting community here, and I felt welcome, and I wasn't scared of it, and I was really more anxious to dive in. And like Nashville is, everyone was just open arms and really supportive of giving me an opportunity, giving me a chance to get into some rooms, and I'm really grateful for that.
What year was that you got there?
I moved to Nashville in 2016.
Okay.
So 7 years ago, it's been a little over 7 years since I've been here.
Nice. And did the rest of your friends join or they stayed out there in LA?
They actually did. Yeah.
They're here, they're there in Nashville?
Yeah. And not everybody's in music. Really, it's just me and one of my buddies from that crew, he was like the main songwriter in their group.
Cool.
He's still writing songs and chasing that every day. His name's Brendan Cooney, and he's a great writer, and he's gonna have a long career. Uh, no doubt about that. But uh, everyone else, one of them is the COO of the Urban Juicer, which is a big like health forward juice bar restaurant here in Nashville. They've got a bunch of locations, and he's just expanded that entire business. And then another one of the guys works in the kitchen for him, manages that staff, and yeah, so everyone's still kind of tight and working together in different aspects. But musically, just Brendan is the only one outside of myself that's still writing.
Nice. So everybody knows the song Rockin' a Hard Place, and you might even be like, I've said this story 1,000 times, but we have to talk about it.
Yeah.
So obviously that's probably by far the most popular song you've been a part of. So can you tell us, I guess, the story again behind the song? And I guess like what were your expectations when you wrote it? Did you like think that I know you posted like a video of you singing it, which you probably felt like vulnerable doing. Like how did it go from being posted to being found to being cut and everything in between?
Yeah. Well, writing wise, it was just, it's another day. When you write songs every day, I try not to really overthink that too much, but I also try and be prepared for every write that I'm going into. I want to understand who my co-writers are, what their role is, and what they do really well. But if there's an artist in the room, then what do they need? What don't they have? And let's chase something. But on that day in particular, it's actually pretty interesting. I was going through a breakup at the time, so I was feeling heavy hearted, which every songwriter you normally want to try and capitalize on going through that type of situation, that life situation. And one of the co-writers that joined us that day was Jet Harvey, and I had just met him about a month before the write at a music event, and he was introduced to me through a friend, Alan Geiger. And Alan just said, "Hey man, this is Jet. He really wants to get tapped into the co-writing scene here. He hasn't co-written anything yet." And um, through that, we set up a date to write. And um, like I said, I was going through it at the time, and one of my best friends in the world, who I was leaning on the most during that time, was Jacob Hackworth. And we had gone out the night before and kind of drinking off this breakup a little bit. And we got pretty drunk, and he ended up staying the night on my couch at my apartment. And when we woke up in the morning, I asked Jacob if he had anything going on, if he wanted to join the write. He obviously joined the write.
So
Jack
crazy.
comes over, and long story short, we grabbed coffee. Everybody got to know one another. And then we got back to my apartment, and everyone got pretty vulnerable. Jet was going through a similar situation with a person he was dating, who is now his wife. And I had this song title that had been in my phone for years. And it was written two different ways in my phone: between a rock and a hard drink, or between a rock and a hard place. And ultimately, we ended up deciding on just going with the coin phrase. And the concept that I had in mind was kind of softly based on how Hardy wrote his song, A Rock, and just choosing to use that word as a metaphor for a diamond, I guess. Maybe that's not even a metaphor, but just, anyway, the concept was, between asking someone to marry you or choosing to go the other direction and move on, which would be the hard thing to do. And it resonated with the room. All of us were going through something similar, and the rest was pretty easy. We just really sat down and told the truth, and that's what we got out of it. So
Was it a long ride?
um, it was a 45-minute ride.
What? That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, it happened pretty quick. 45 to an hour. We spent more time getting coffee than we did on the song, probably.
And were
But
you like, this is gonna be huge, or were you like, all right, I said some things.
I don't know. I don't think when you write every day, it can be naive to leave the room calling everything a hit. Because this town it'll humble you quickly. and even the songs that probably make the most sense to you as a hit song aren't the ones that end up getting chosen. But in this case, I just felt really connected to the lyric, and I think that's what I felt most proud of. And I hadn't posted me performing any of my songs on Instagram ever before, but if you want me to get super honest with you, I was really uh trying to show that song to the girl that had broken up with me.
Are you serious?
So I posted it on my Instagram just to try and like let her know like I was going through it, and also uh you know be able to say it in a way that like I wouldn't be able to say it in a normal conversation. And that girl is now my fiance. So
Wait, is it
uh
really?
yeah, so we found a way back, which in our own way, it's the way that we capped off that story, because that song is really, it is sad, but we left it open ended, and ultimately we ended up choosing the rock and not the hard place. So
Right,
that's
that's
the way I went.
literally
But
and getting engaged on stage to that song. That's crazy.
yeah, it was a full circle moment for sure. But
You
so
did
I
one.
posted the video on Instagram, and I'd written with Bailey 2 times before I posted that video, so we were already connected, and he had my number. And his producer Austin Sean, he and I had worked on other projects with other artists before. So about 25 minutes after I posted on my Instagram, I got a phone call, and um, it was Austin. I didn't know Bailey was on the other end of the phone, but basically they were both saying, "Hey, Bailey needs another single, and he just signed his record deal at Warner, and we would love to cut this song. Can we cut it?" And long story short, talked to my co-writers. Everyone was on board. We believed in Bailey and what he had going on and his voice, and we knew he had a great team behind him too. So uh, he ended up cutting it. When I heard the first master of that song, I cried my eyes out, and I felt like for the first time in my music career, an outside song found a vessel that it was meant for, and it truly felt like that song was written for Bailey. And even though we didn't sit down and do it on purpose, the song found its home, and that doesn't always happen on Music Row, but when it does, I think it's magic, and I'm really grateful for what Bailey's done with it.
Yeah, when I heard that song, I was in my car when I first heard the song, and I just like kind of, I don't know, I like literally just, I felt like he was right, like he was, I thought it was his right, put it that way. I just thought it was like a solo right, because it just seemed like the way he was singing, I was like, oh, this guy's been through something. And then when I saw like he didn't write it, I was like, wow, that's crazy. So I
Yeah,
thought,
it really found its home. But shout out to Bailey for having that type of voice and that type of ability to perform a lyric in a vocal booth. I don't think a lot of artists possess that. I think a lot of people have great singing voices. I think a lot of people dream of being country music stars or whatever, and we write a lot of songs, and most songs like probably easier to sell than others, but there are really only a handful of singers in my mind that really possess that tool to be able to sell and perform a lyric that might not be something they wrote, but they are. I always tell Bailey he was the vessel for that song, and he's he's got it. He's got that thing, and I'm really happy it was his voice that sang that lyric.
yeah. And he gives so much credit to you guys. Like, I think everyone's come to know your guys' names, which is so cool.
Yeah, he's the man. He really is. He's a great guy.
Was your fiance expecting the proposal?
No, God no. She had no idea, and she's really hard to trick. Like I don't think I've ever gotten anything by her really, but um, and I've been telling this story a lot lately just because it really um for me, there wasn't ever any question in my mind that I was supposed to or wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. Um, Definitely a lot of growing up had to happen. Most of that growing had to come from me. Uh, and she's a full adult. She is uh, an incredible woman, and I just had some growing up to do, and that's really what that time apart was. And when I wrote Rock and a Hard Place, and when we did end up coming back together, I think we both felt like it was a completely fresh, clean slate, fresh start, and it allowed for us to really kind of start over. And I guess this is like a weird word, but I don't know how else to say it. Like marinate, like let our relationship marinate a little bit and let it grow. And ultimately, um, when I decided to ask her to marry me, I hadn't really like I didn't plan this out for months or anything. I literally planned it out in a matter of days, if not like hours. And we obviously had plans to go to the Morgan Bailey show in San Diego Friday and Saturday night. So on Friday, before Bailey went on stage, we were all hanging out on his bus, and I pulled him to the back lounge, and I was like, "Hey, I think I'm gonna ask her to marry me tomorrow. Like, I need your help. Can I do it during sound check?" And he's like, "Yeah, great, awesome. I'll get my like photographers to like video it or something." I'm like, "Great, awesome, sounds good enough." Didn't put that much planning into it. And then the next morning, Bailey called me. He's like, "Dude, what if I just call you up during Rock and a Hard Place in front of everybody? Let's just do it big." And and I was like, "She's gonna hate it, but let's just do it."
Oh my God.
So yeah, it we really did just kind of wing it. But when you see the video back, it really like everything landed perfectly, and
Magical.
yeah, it was
That's great.
I think that moment was meant to happen the way that it did. I'm glad that it did.
Yeah, congrats though. That's so cool.
Thank you.
This is gonna be your first dance to Rock and a Hard Place.
Yeah, well, probably not.
No, I know.
But
You're really crazy though. Wow. Um, that's insane. So then your signing with Warner Chappell came like after that, of course, right?
right, yeah. So all three of us, myself, Jacob, and Chet, were all independent songwriters and didn't have publishing deals. Didn't. I mean, I've been in town writing songs and taking meetings and had done all the things, and um, you know, kind of just stopped chasing getting a deal and just put my head down and wanted to write as much as I could and believed in myself enough that if I continued to do that, somebody was going to hear it. And ultimately, I had to write a hit song to get offered a publishing deal, and it doesn't happen that way for everyone. But I love that that's what it took in my journey because um, it's shaped me into who I am and the way I view the business and how I approach it every day. And I think it allows for me to bring a little bit more to the table every day. So Ryan Beisel at Warner Chappell was kind enough to take a chance on me, and he and Ben Vaughn sent me an offer. I don't know, 2 or 3 months after Rock and Hard Place had come out. Met with them, really loved everything going on at Warner. What's not to love? It's obviously a very professional company, and they've got dream artists on their roster. But more than anything, after meeting with like 30 some publishers over the last few years, um, it's not about the deal as much as it's about feeling at home with the company that you end up signing with. And for me, the second that I met with Ryan, I felt like that was where I was supposed to be. And Ben Vaughn, the president, he is just an amazing professional and really well respected, but also so approachable and kind and also welcoming in the Nashville forum. So I'm really grateful. Got a hell of a team over there now. Ryan has moved on from Warner Chappell since, and he's now working for the Neil agency, which is Bailey Zimmerman and Morgan Wallen's agency. And I know Ryan's going to do a great job there. And I know I'm in good hands with Ben Vaughn and the rest of the staff. BJ and Bryce and Amanda have taken really great care of me. So I'm happy to be where I am.
So cool. Um, for those like that don't know about the whole songwriting process, what's like the average amount of time between, say, someone cuts your song and it's released, and like I guess like from writing a song to like the average time that someone might actually cut it to getting paid, like the whole process of a songwriter that a lot of people don't, I guess, know about.
Yeah, I think less people would sign up for this gig. Less people would sign up for it if they knew all of this stuff. So I'm happy to tell you. Uh, um, I'm not sure what the average time period would be from like write to cut to release, but it really varies. I think timing is everything in this business, and you could spend a lot of time writing with an artist that is nowhere near going into the studio and getting ready to cut songs and write a great song, and they're a year away from even thinking about what five sides they're going to go in and cut. In other cases, you could end up in a room where they're like, hey, I'm cutting right now or next week, and I'm looking for this. This is what I don't have on my album. Can we please try and write it today? To, I mean, I had a write with Bailey and Austin Sean and Gavin Lucas last October, and I got to the write, and they had already decided that we were going to write a song called House on Fire. And I didn't even ask any questions. I'm just like, sick, let's write this song. So we write this song called House on Fire, and we finish, and they're like, you have a song on the record. It comes out in 2 weeks. And I was like, what?
Oh,
And they're like, yeah, iTunes leaked the track listing for the EP, and we just filled in one of the blanks because we still needed a song, and we just filled in this title. So now we have to write it because everyone is expecting it to be on the record.
funny.
So that's a short form right there. Like, we wrote the song and it was out 2 weeks later. I've had other, like, my first major label cut was a song called Something You Ain't Ever Had that got cut by a duo, Waterloo Revival. And I wrote that song when I was living in LA with Brendan Cooney. And I think we wrote that song in 2014, and it was released in 2020. So, that's 6 years apart, six years removed from the writing room to, cut and release. So really it just depends. But when you start getting paid off of that, like, technically how it works is, if a song is released on June 10th, then you'll start getting paid for June 10th 9 months later. So it's a 9 month process, and it takes a long time, and it's kind of a part of the gig, and being patient is a part of it as well. But if you are a songwriter, then you're not a stranger to being poor and being broke and not having money. So, that part of the struggle you can kind of get used to wearing. And when the money does start coming in, you know, it's really nice to start to feel a little bit comfortable, and also rewarded for all the years and all the time that you spent trying to perfect and figure out this business. So, I feel lucky to be in it. This is a hell of a community for me to be in, and I'm just happy that I get to show up every day and chase it.
So cool. Um, would you like consider yourself like a good conversationalist? A lot of songwriters, I like to always ask them this, like they seem so great at communication because they can write so well and express their feelings, but then some of them are like, no, I'm really not good at conversation, like with someone, like one-on-one compared to like just writing in a room. Like, do you ever find that, or is there like different struggles between like days when you feel like you don't have a lot to give, but you're like, oh, I gotta write a song?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I have just grown up being social, And I was well socialized as a child. When I was growing up, my parents always had me in front of a bunch of adults. I was at dinner parties and different things like that. And then also, you play little league or you play football and you're always on a team. So you're learning how to make friends and you're learning how to communicate naturally that way. And I think it's carried over into my professional career for sure. Um, Also, just professionally speaking for me, uh, because I was an independent writer for so long, I didn't have anyone working for me, which means I didn't have anyone doing the talking for me. I didn't have anyone plugging my songs and pitching for me. So I really had to learn how to be my own publisher and my own biggest like salesman, right? And trying to convince people that I can handle any room that I'm thrown into, and I know how to handle these situations, but also I have a really good understanding of how the business works and how to pitch a song and how to manage a meeting or collaborate with others and understand my role.
So
And
valuable.
yeah, I think it's valuable. It has been for me. But with that being said, I think everyone's different. And I there are a lot of hit songwriters that aren't socialites, that they're internal, and um that's their secret weapon. I think maybe they come alive in the writing room a little bit more because they do hang on to so much. So um yeah, I just think everybody's different. But for me, I mean, listen to my answers. I talk for like 5 minutes between each question. So uh yeah, I would definitely say it's helped me, and I would consider myself a good communicator.
That's awesome. Um, do you have like a million song titles in your phone that just aren't used? That was one of my questions, and then you kind of touched on it earlier with like keeping that title in your phone.
Yeah, yeah. I have a couple different banks in my phone. One of them is just like my main like go-to note that has, I mean, probably thousands of titles and different phrases and just like conversational lines that feel like they could be a good lyric, or maybe that's it's a flippable phrase, something that you can turn and dig deeper on in a way that maybe no one's ever used before. And then I have like uh, another portion of my folder that's a little bit more like um, directed to specific types of country. So some of them are like swaggy, which I would anything in that bag I would put like towards like the Morgan Wallen like trap pop country vein. I have like a bunch of relationship titles. I have a bunch of bro country titles, lifestyle country titles, classic country titles, bluegrass title. Like just everything's just kind of marked. But the one folder is very random, and that's the one that I always go to when I'm like out at a bar or I'm at a function, or like maybe I just got off of like a call and I thought of something or someone said something and I just like need to write it down right away. Um, that's like my go-to folder first. And then if we're ever just like dry and in the writing room and need something to
Mhm.
really like bring to the table, then I'll go into the more specific folder and pull those titles out.
You have a dream, right? That hasn't happened yet? Like a cheap.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like someone asked me this on a podcast like a
Really?
few
Oh,
months
sorry.
ago. No, 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 no. I love it.
Okay.
What's cool about it is I think someone asked me that in the podcast a few months ago, and I may have listed off a few people, and since then I've actually written with a couple of them. So uh, it's been a cool year, and a lot of that has to do with my publisher. They've really set me up for success and gotten to put me in some rooms with some of those folks. But you know, I think we all moved to town and we have like these writers that we look up to, and you're like, damn, I would do anything to get in a room with that person because I feel like I have something to learn. or I'm just like so interested to like be the fly on the wall in that room and like understand their process. But what I've really found along the way is like we're all human and we're all songwriters and we're all going through something. And sometimes we don't have anything to write about. Sometimes we have a lot to write about. And it really doesn't depend on where we're at in our career. You know, you still have to show up, still got to dive in, and you got to do your part and contribute and try and throw everything at the wall to, you know, to get the final product. And for me, dream rights are awesome, but I've learned just as much from some people that took me by surprise that I knew nothing about before I came in.
Yeah.
So I think the dream is to write, but if I could pick like a room to jump into tomorrow, and tomorrow's Saturday, so I'm not hurting anyone's feelings. I don't have anyone on my calendar for tomorrow. But if I had a dream write tomorrow, I think it would be great to write with like Shane McAnally, Josh Osborne, um, uh, Ashley Gorley, of course,
Oh,
and you know, any of those guys, Natalie Hemby,
mhm.
Hillary Lindsay,
Oh my gosh.
um, Lori McKenna. I could like
So
go for
cool.
days. Barry Dean, whom I just met recently, and we've yet to write, but I know that one's going to happen. And I just those those are the people that really they're the reason why I wanted to do this. They're the reason why I wanted to move to Nashville and be around it. And um, you know, I'm just going to keep plugging away, and hopefully I end up in rooms with them. But more than that, hopefully we end up with something successful. We end up with something that people get to hear. That's the ultimate goal.
Do you find that it's like ever, I don't know, this might be a silly question, but do you ever find that it's awkward to listen to your songs back like once they're cut? Like hearing it from someone else who's like singing it like, or is it like just like a vulnerable like, oh, is people gonna like it? Or is it just literally like, wow, I'm so happy it was cut.
Maybe it's a little bit of all those things, but honestly, for me, I'm normally writing a song with the hope that someone else is going to sing it.
Well, yeah.
So, uh, you know, my only worry most of the time is like, oh man, how are they going to produce it? I hope they don't miss the mark, or you know, I hope this lyric resonates with them like it did me, so that you know that thing we were talking about that Bailey has, that Morgan has, that you know really only a few people have. I really hope they can perform this lyric. I hope they can sell it. I hope they can like make the listener feel like they're in it too, you know?
Mm,
But
such a cool
I don't
idea.
know if it's ever awkward. Getting a cut's the best feeling in the world. So,
I guess I meant
here,
more like vulnerable, not awkward, but like I could imagine it being vulnerable if it meant so much to you and then the world gets to hear it and you're like, oh.
yeah, I definitely have a few where I'd be like, no, I don't want that person to cut it. I'd rather wait and shop it around a little bit more until like this, and this person say no. If they say no, then maybe we let this other person cut it. But that goes without saying any names, you know?
Right, right. Oh wow, that's crazy. So what is there anything like up and coming that you want to maybe touch upon or that you can tell us? I don't know if you can. I know you like.
Uh, yeah, I don't know. You know, I really don't want to jinx myself on anything that I've got going on, but I'm really excited. This is what I'll say. I'm really excited about some of the songs we've been working on and where they're ending up and with some of the people that they're ending up with. I'm really excited to see what the next year brings for me. And uh I don't know. I just want to keep learning. I want to keep growing. I want to keep getting better and keep getting lucky. I know I've been lucky. So that's a big part of the business.
Do you feel?
Sorry, I'm not giving away too much,
Oh,
but
you're good. You're good. I never know who could say what.
yeah.
This business. Um, do you feel that like country was always the genre that you like? I know when you were speaking about you were kind of just writing like country pop and then you just like landed in Nashville, but like was country something you listened to growing up or was it not?
Yeah, my whole family's from West Texas for the most part, and country music was always playing in my mom's car. That's for sure. So when
Like,
my mom would drop us off at school or pick us up from school or drive us around town, drive us to practice. Uh, we were always listening to country. I have like this really, for whatever reason, a very present memory in my mind of being dropped off at elementary school, probably like first grade or second grade. And we were listening to Whose Bed Have Your Boots Been Under?
Nice.
And a lot of Shania Twain and some like Sheryl Crow, Leanne Rhymes, uh, and then always George Strait and Alan Jackson. But like George was like always on, and I grew up listening to that. But then I like to tell a lot of people this because I think the reason why country music is in the place that it's in right now is a reflection of the generation that of the writers, like the generation that they grew up in. And most of the writers right now all grew up as 90s kids. And in the 90s, it really was the first decade where you had hip hop, which everyone's like, whoa, that's really cool. This is something really fresh and really new. This is what country music sounds like now. And it's a little bit different than like the outlaw era in the 70s and 80s. And this is what rock and roll is. And it was like anywhere between Sugar Ray and uh, Third Eye Blind and Matchbox 20 and I don't know, uh, I don't know, any of those like 90s rock bands, right? And then you get into like Incubus, but then I just feel like we all grew up in this like multi-genre 90s childhood where like you turned on MTV or you turned on VH1 Top 20 Countdown before school and you were hearing something from all of these different genres. And we were those kids.
You're
And
making
I think now when we write these songs, we're really just pulling from this stuff that we grew up on unintentionally. And that's why country music is this 6 lane highway now of like subgenres instead of just being that dirt road, outlaw, like classic country bit. And then maybe a little side lane of everyone complaining about it or owning it. Like the other thing, you know? Like we've never felt more allowed to do whatever the hell we want in country music. And that's what makes showing up to the writing room really exciting right now.
awesome.
Um, just the fact that, you know, we've got Morgan and Bailey and Luke Combs at the top of, you know, Billboard Hot 100, um, above, you know, some of the biggest names in pop is and hip hop. Like it is
It's
such a
inspiring.
crazy place that we're in right now, and yeah, it's inspiring to say the least. So I'm really happy, and I'm happy for some of my friends in town that are a part of all those songs because I think what I just explained, I think that's the best way I've been able to make sense of why country music is the way it is right now.
Right. Yeah, that was a great way to put it. I've never heard someone say it like that, but it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I grew up in the 90s too, so yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Um, do you have a favorite song like ever lyrically? Like
Yeah, yeah, of course I do. I have quite a few. I think my favorite song of all time is "Take It Easy" by the Eagles.
nice.
Uh, I just absolutely love that song, and I love Jackson Brown. He's one of my favorite songwriters of all time, and you don't have the Eagles without Jackson Brown. So that's like my favorite song ever. But my favorite like well crafted country song ever written is "The Chair" by George Strait.
Nice.
And I think it's a lot of people's favorites, like classically, traditionally, but it's just a really, really cool song. And it's, you know, it's got the hook, it's got the story, and I, you know, I just love George.
Yeah, me too. So I pretty much wrap up every interview with the 3 questions. You might have seen them now, but so what's your favorite place to hang out in town in Nashville? Like anywhere. Favorite all-time artist of any genre, and then your favorite up and coming artist.
Okay.
So,
Wow. All right. Man, that's a tough three for me. What was the first one? Where do
favorite
I hang out in town?
like hang
My
out in
favorite place to hang out in town is it's easily Tin Roof on Demumbrian. That's just kind of like the spot.
Calgary.
Uh like I feel like I could walk in there. It's kind of like Cheers. I could walk in there and I'll know
Yeah,
a few people in there at any hour of the day. Um but I gotta give like winners and losers a big shout out. Losers is like a hot spot for us to go after, right? If we don't have anything going on in the afternoon after we finish. And we just sit there, grab lunch and maybe have a drink and then, call it. But and then Red Door is just a master connector in the industry. I think it's the late night
right.
spot. Like everyone else could go everywhere else, but if you're still awake and feeling up for it, like if you walk into Red Door, you're gonna run into a million people that you either already know or people that you need to know. So I'll put those three places on the map. That's where I've probably spent most of my time connecting with the songwriting scene.
Nice.
My favorite current artist is that, or my favorite artist of all time.
Your favorite artist of all time, like your yeah.
Yeah, that's tough.
I don't think anyone
Um,
I've interviewed so far has said a country artist, which is so
oh yeah, well, man, my favorite artist of all time. I love John Mayer.
nice.
I think he's timeless and iconic. I think he's daring. I think he's interesting. I think he's weird. I think he's cool. Uh, and I just, I really just respect his musicianship more than anything. But yeah, John Mayer. But if I had to choose country, I would either say George Strait or Keith Urban. I love Keith. I think he's a lot like John Mayer in that way. Like the musicianship is just insane, and I just think he's freaking cool.
Yeah,
And George Strait's like he could either be my grandpa or my dad, I guess. But like I would just love to sit on a front porch and drink a beer with that guy and talk about his life and maybe write a song.
I
But
want to hear.
yeah, yeah, George Strait for sure. And then my favorite up and coming artist. This is gonna be like this could be I'm gonna I believe in a lot of people and I'm currently working with quite a few artists that I truly believe in and I think the ceiling is really high for them. But I would say my favorite up and coming artist, even though he's not even up and coming anymore, he's so big already. I would say Bailey Zimmerman. I think he, I owe him a lot. He's changed my life. And I would like to think, or at least hope, that I've changed his. And our friendship and our partnership, it goes deeper than just music. But um, I think he represents this class of people in America and maybe even worldwide that makes like a wild dream feel attainable. And he is almost just like this thing that we get to watch like go from zero to 100 every day, and you're like, wow, well, if that kid could do this, like what part of me haven't I tapped into, and like what dream am I not chasing, or whatever. And I find that like super inspiring, especially in a 22-year-old kid. I think he's dealing with a lot. He's got a lot of pressure, and I think in his 2 years of like stardom, the only thing I've seen him do is take care of his people and try and keep his feet on the ground and enjoy every moment while also trying to navigate one of the toughest businesses in the world. And I just respect the hell out of him. And I feel lucky that I get to work with him and that he trusts me with that process. And I can't wait to see what he does. And even if it's not in music, I think he, I just think he possesses the ability to inspire a lot of people and change the world. So I love Bailey. He's my guy.
That's so awesome. You just said like a lot of words that were very spot on.
Hell yeah.
Agree with that all. So yeah, thanks so much for coming on and chatting. And
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
yeah, we can't wait to see what's next.
Yeah, we got a lot in the works right now. I'm stoked to see what it does.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for having me.